Genshin story has one major unsolvable problem. And that problem is none other than this flying pink The name's Leafy, and let's get right into it. Okay, let's forget about the whole fact that after 5 regions, almost 4 years of this game, and after meeting over hundreds of characters in Tevat, no one knows what she is, or who she actually is. Her background is explained with nothing more than, oh, the traveler fished me out of the sea 2 months before they started the game's whole story. And that's it. Oh, and let's just ignore the fact that she has celestial-like symbols literally covering her entire being. No, let's just ignore all that for now. My problem for Paimon stems from more of a storytelling point of view. Have any of you ever seen that comparison between the dialogue counts that characters have within a whole Archon or story quest? Most of the ones that you manage to find will always have Paimon topping the list by a large margin, like a ridiculously large margin, eclipsing even the characters that had huge roles and presence to play in that particular arc of the story. This alone isn't a big problem in itself, but the fact of the matter is, her role in the story could have been made better use of if it had involved us, the traveler, the main character of the game, talking just quite as much as she does. One of the biggest flaws of Genshin's story is always the fact that for some reason, they chose to make the main characters themselves mostly mute. For people who has played this game for a long time, albeit we're kinda numb to it, but do you know how crazy we sound like when we try to tell other people about the story of this game and we go, oh, you know what? And the main character finally said a couple of sentences. And other people who don't play the game will be like, huh, were they mute or something? Or were they not able to talk this whole time? No, we just don't get voice lines from them. But they're able to talk? Yeah. So they have the ability to talk. They're the main character, but they don't get voice lines? Nope. See how idiotic that premise sounded like? And it would have made much more sense if we were built as this character who isn't talkative in the first place. But just from our own voice lines and descriptions from other characters' voice lines, we know very well that that isn't the case. It made sense at the beginning of the game where it was mentioned that they were probably still trying to learn the language of Tevat, so the language barrier made it hard for them to actually talk that often. But that reason is long gone now that they've been there for longer than we probably thought of them to be. It always throws me off whenever another character mentions that,
if it weren't for my library work and potion-making duties, I'd love nothing more than to spend every day chatting with you like this.
Or something like,
of course, it's always a pleasure to be in your company.
And I'll just be sitting there going, well, lucky you. I don't even know how my own voice sounds like 99% of the time. Apart from that, it really doesn't help that they decided to put Aether and Lumine's dialogistic role into a character who not only has a voice with a pitch that sometimes only dogs can hear, and somehow is becoming much more of a dick with every patch that comes through. And this is a character who, at the very start of the game, still openly mocked a god who literally just had his connection to heaven forcefully taken off of him.
Even so, it sounds like he works much harder than a certain someone,
Regardless of whether you think he deserved it, it was still a dick move. A more recent example is from Furina's story quest. I don't know what the writers were smoking when they were writing that story, but the way Paimon and the Traveler handled the initial half of that story quest was so not the cash money way. And seeing Furina and a bunch of other characters finally call her out when she's being too much of a nuisance is such a therapeutic experience.
Could you please get off my case? I don't know what's gotten into you today. I'm making an effort here. You could at least try to do the same.
Here.
Shut it, Paimon.
Sino, we're leaving!
Stop yelling.
Also, it would have been better if they kept her older voice where it sounded much lower and more natural.
That sounded so fake! These creatures don't seem like the type to set up camp so close to cities like this. Hey, Kaitahara kid! Paimon learned it from Chief Mate Juza!
But then I heard that the higher voice actually hurts less for the actor to do, so I let it go. But then I heard again recently that her voice went down a tone or two, and this time, someone else said it was because it hurt for the V8 to remain in that high pitch that she had before. So at this point, I don't even know which one is the actual case. Basically, my point is that our connection with the traveler themselves are very much diminished in a way where we can't really relate to their voice of emotion because it doesn't exist most of the time. With all the talking being done by Paimon herself, it's really tough for us to feel that connection as the main character to the characters that we encounter along the way. Another problem is that no moment in the game is ever truly private or platonically intimate when it comes to our relationship with other characters. Paimon's always there like a counselor watching over couples therapy. When another character wants to vent or have a rather private moment with us, it never really feels that way because Paimon's being treated as if she's our extension. Or even in certain cases, it almost feels like as if we are her extension. The game tends to forget to treat Paimon and us as two different characters. That's why compared to other games, I think the emotional relation between us with Aether and Lumine themselves can feel quite lacking. The moments of character interactions that I really enjoy in this game are the ones that actually are between us and another character, instead of it being mediated by Paimon or some other third party. Like when we had that little moment with Xiao in that poem event a couple of patches back.
Things you never had the chance to say before it was too late. When silence is the final word, we mourn the loss of things unheard. I have little talent for.
That kind of moment is what I'm looking for from this game. And it annoys me to no end that Paimon had to go, "Oh, you two are having a private chat at the end." It's like, just shut your mouth for once, bruh. Like, let us have this moment, unperturbed, you know? It also doesn't help that we have very little true expressions of human moments from the Traveler. Sure, we see them get worried or slightly angry during cutscenes and stuff, but we never really hear them actually voice their emotions. Except for when we get to Xianjin's story quest. And look, Xianjin's story quest is 4 years after the game is out. It's such a long time before we even get that kind of moment. And before that, the closest we ever got to that is the one in that chasm quest where we actually snapped at NPCs for once. And the most frustrating part of that particular scene is that it was in a non-voice acted quest. In a non-voice acted quest where the emotions would have been so good to see, so human to see. Which just becomes another thing for us to mourn over never actually hearing it being said. But then again, the reason why I said this might be unsolvable in the title is because the game has just gone on for way too long for it to suddenly change this way. The longtime players have long grown numb to hearing only 1 or 2 words every other patch from our Traveler, and the newer players have other things to worry about. I figured that it's just such a shame because I think Zach Aguilar and Sarah Miller-Cruz are both great voice actors and they've done such a good job for Aether and Lumine for the little amount of dialogue that they get every now and then. And I'm sure the same sentiment can be echoed for the Chinese, Japanese, and Korean voice actors of these characters. And it would have been so much more cooler to hear their voices much more often in this game. And otherwise, it's just a waste of the great voice acting talent that Hoyo has at their disposal. Of course, I don't mean to absolutely torch Paimon's dialogue availability. It's quite a given at this point that she's the master yapper of the game, and it would definitely feel weird to just suddenly have her voice gradually half-off disappear at some point. But giving her too much carrying power in terms of the story's narrative will just make it bleak, as I'm sure a lot of people are already feeling at this point. And it's not like we haven't had games do the whole smaller companion who talks a lot role being done alongside normal main character who isn't mute role. A very recent example of one being done quite well is from Grand Blue Fantasy Relink.
Well, Captain?
Maybe we could grab a bite.
There's no need to sacrifice Aether and Lumine's dialogistic availability when you can just redistribute some of what Paimon has into the actual main characters instead. I know that having Paimon do most of the talking is also to sort of induce our own connection with her because she's probably gonna have some crazy dramatic event that's gonna have her be at the center of it somewhere down the storyline. But I think at this point, a change of pace with the Traveler being at the core of the dialogue will be a very welcome change both in story impact and just for the game in general. And that's about all I want to talk about for this video. I've got another video coming up where it revolves around a particular story problem that certain character faces, so be on the lookout for that. Other than that, I hope you guys had enjoyed the video. Please let me know what you think about this problem down in the comments below. And if you like it, do leave a like. If you don't, then leave a dislike. Oh, and one last thing. If you watched through this whole video and now all you can think of is, ooh, it's time to go to the social medias of these voice actors and start saying some unpleasant words to them, then you're a dumbass. Don't do that. They're just doing their jobs. Keep it constructive and don't be a dick. And with that being said, the name's Leafy, and I'll see you in the next video. Sayonara.